Hi everyone, and welcome to today's online briefing with the Trans-Tasman Business Circle and our wonderful guest speaker today, Pip Marlow. Before we continue, I'd like to pay tribute to our original custodians of the land and their hopes, dreams and ambitions for Indigenous Australia. My name's Tanya Oziel and I'm the CEO of the Trans-Tasman Business Circle, and it's so great to have you all with us today. We've got a wonderful global audience. So we've got people from Singapore, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, the States, and a very special guest, Susan Donners, who is our moderator for today. She's the CIO of Qantas and she's coming in from Canada. So I'd like to welcome you all with us. We're very excited with this series and I really want to thank our partners, Commonwealth Bank, IBM, Red Hat, and ServiceNow. These companies are really committed to business continuity. They're taking our vision globally. They're taking our thought leadership globally and are very committed to what we're trying to do to keep you all connected in these very challenging times. So we hope that our webinars and our wonderful group of speakers are the highlight of your day. We'd love some feedback. We'd love you to get more involved. And with that, I've got no housekeeping except Q&A when it comes up. So just get involved. We're an hour today with Pip. And thank you for being with us. I'm going to hand over to Susan now to start and enjoy the session.
Thank you, Tanya. Very pleased to be coming to you from Canada. I am in self-isolation, so I'll be glad to be able to get outside at least for a walk soon. Firstly, I just want to thank Tanya and the Trans-Tasman as well, because it's a wonderful way that they're actually bringing us together. So in these times where we might feel socially isolated versus social distancing, it's great to feel that we can be connected virtually, if not physically. And then I'm really, really pleased to be able to host Pip, who's not only just a wonderful person, but a terrific leader as well. And I'm looking forward to learning a lot from Pip, as I'm sure you all will as well in this conversation. So to that point, we'll just get straight into this is Pip, you know, as you've heard, it's unprecedented times and you're brand new to Salesforce. So how are you handling this situation as a new leader in Salesforce?
Thanks, Susan, and thanks for dialing in from Canada today to do this with me. And it's nice to have a fellow fabulous leader and friend to talk with. So thank you very much. And thanks, Tanya and John and the team at Trans-Tasman for including me on this series. Yeah, I've been at the company for 6 months, so definitely baptism by fire. And you think you're prepared and you build up your career and you think you're ready for what's next, but who could predict this and really even prepare for it in some ways? So when I think about, you know, how to lead right now, you'll probably find the first comment quite amusing, Susan. I think actually you got to put your oxygen mask on first. Everybody, it is really hard for anybody, be you a technical leader or because everybody can lead, to try and help others or lead others through this if you're not in the best possible place that you can be in. So I am trying to make sure that I have put that oxygen mask on, that I'm thinking about my mental wellness, my physical wellness, and creating the best possible environment as we lead our teams through this. No, this is not my house, in case anybody's asking if I've done some redecorating, just one of our fantastic backgrounds. So first of all, I'm trying to do that. The second thing I'm really trying to do is lead with compassion and empathy. Nobody's, you know, in our lifetime has been through a situation like this. So you can't give somebody a playbook. How everybody is experiencing this is very different. So don't, you know, trying very hard not to start with judgment or even help, but seeking to understand the compassion and empathy. How are my team experiencing and living through this now? How are our customers experiencing and living through it? And the more we can do compassion and empathy and questioning, the more then that you can do the next element, which is then figuring out how we help best right now as individuals, as organizations, you know, to really help set us up. So getting the oxygen mask on, getting curious, empathy, compassion, and then asking the best possible questions to figure out how we can best help. That's sort of how I'm trying to sort of get through this and lead the team through this.
I think that's really wise advice. Is you can't help other people if you're not in a good place. So I think that's really wise advice, not just for work, but for home life as well, when the priorities are happening all at once. So we're right in the middle of this storm right now. What do you think happens next? What are you going to do, and how do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. The way I'm thinking about it is because who knows what next is. What's next could be further hardship, further constraints, or it could be, going in a different direction. The way I'm thinking about it, we're now sort of in 3 phases. First phase is the crisis has occurred, and what do we need to do? We need to respond and stabilize. And I really think right now we're just getting through the response and stabilization. And that means, for me, helping people now set up working from home, so they can do the thing that they do from anywhere, so they can still connect with their customers and their partners. So I think the first phase has been respond and stabilize. I then think about the next 2 phases. One's the recovery, how's the recovery, and then the creation of, the return to the new normal. So the next phase will be, how do we start to focus on that recovery? What does that mean around our economy, around our getting people, preparing to drive growth into the future, helping small businesses get online, helping partners reshape their business so they can find a way to move forward. So what are the efforts that we need to now go into to be thinking appropriately around the recovery, and how do we do that? And then the next phase I think about planning for is the return to a normal. And I think that's a really important thing for us to think about, is what is the new normal for us? Because I do think that the world has changed. In some ways, it might be the death of the handshake. We may never shake hands again, which I think I said to Tanya last week, I'm sort of okay with that. I'm pretty sure not everybody had been washing their hands anyway. So if I never have to shake another hand, I could be okay with that. But things like people flying to places, for single meetings, I think people are more comfortable now going, actually, this technology can do a lot of this. So how do we make sure we do that? And then when we do travel, what is the new way of traveling that, really takes into account what we've learned through this? What is the new normal when it comes to blending home and work? Because right now I'm sharing the house with my 2 teenage daughters. One's in high school, one's at university. We're learning to live and work under the same roof together. We're learning a lot about that. But in fact, in that new normal, we're doing some really cool things together as a family. We're playing more games, cards, Articulate, very good, very competitive. We are making cooking and family meals a whole, different type of experience for us. And I want to hold on to some of that. I'm loving that part of the new normal. So maybe we want to make sure that when we are creating the future, we take the best of what this experience has given to us and hold our into that phase. So crisis is about responding and stabilizing. Recovery is about building muscle for the future. And the return to the new normal is taking a sense of ownership and creating what we want our new world to be like, and how we make the most of it.
Yeah. So then I gather what you're saying is, there's a lot of people saying, when I can't wait for it to be over. When will it be over? It seems to me you're saying, well, I think there's going to be a new normal versus what over really means. Yeah.
And, it's funny, we had a group of friends and we decided to do a sweepstake about when will it be over. And then the discussion is, what was over? How would you measure what over truly looks like? And I think maybe over for me is actually the opening of international borders. When we are able to have, free travel for humans across international borders, means that, that globally as a planet, we are back to being able to, move around and share this great planet that hopefully we're taking better care of. But I think the path to that may be quite some time. So how do we manage through all of those experiences? Because even at that point, when that happens, I do think to the conversation we just had, it will be very different. I think, there'll be a different social fabric, a different economic fabric that we're going to have to deal with, and different ways of engaging and doing, living our personal lives as well as our business lives.
Yeah, no, I agree. You referred to earlier when in the opening remarks a bit around, that this event is probably something that nobody's ever had to handle in their lifetime before. So, the Black Swan event. But I'm curious, now that you are in the middle of it, what have you learned in the past that is actually, you think, really serving you well now that you're in the middle of this crisis?
I think you can help people with strategies around, stress and pressure. But actually, I've had some really tough experiences in my career where it's just been, incredibly, tough times, back on the GFC, on the back of the GFC, which really taught me a lot. Working at Microsoft in a really tough time in the 2000s, where it got really, really hard, and the headlines were a little bit at that time, Microsoft's best days are in the rear view mirror, not the road ahead, but I think that's been proved wrong. So those tough experiences are moving into financial services as a complete, not a banker or an insurance person, going and operating in a business where you are not the subject matter expert. All of those experiences, those really tough times, either, global economic crises or a company going through a tough time, or putting myself into a space where I knew, was not that subject matter expert. All of those experiences gave me some resilience. A belief that actually you don't have to have perfection all the time. You just need the next step, one step forward, and just a bit of progress. And that could be enough to, get through to the next day. A belief that at the end, things would be better, but I had to always focus on what I could control. In the GFC, talking about the exchange rate or the unemployment numbers, or you don't control that, but you control how you spend your time and how you spend your money. Show me your calendar and your wallet where you spend your time and money, and I'll tell you what you really care about. Mm-hmm. So where are we right now spending our time and our money? I can read another 50 articles on COVID, but I'm not going to come up with a vaccine. I'm not going to, that's not me. But what I can do right now is some other things. I can spend my time talking to customers, understanding their pain points. I can connect with my people and make sure that they're doing as well as possible. I can spend my money on small businesses to try and help them survive right now. And all of those things, that's what I say, in a situation like this, what is it you can control? What are the steps that you can take? And just getting that small bit of progress every day. I think those are things that make a difference when the whole world seems, chaotic and overwhelming in some ways.
Yeah, I think it goes back to your comment about putting your oxygen mask on. There's the sphere of control, and then outside of there's a sphere of influence. But then after that, there's I don't know what it's called, but it's there's not much you can do about it. So try to, work in your spheres, because that's what makes you stay grounded. The other thing that struck me too of what you said is that I was reading a book, which is a big problem is lots of small problems waiting to kind of come out, which is, how do you chunk things down in lots of little small things, or the next thing that needs to be done, versus making it everything and then some. I think that's really some really wise words of wisdom. So did you discover anything about yourself, or maybe did your family discover anything that they're telling you about yourself now during this time?
My family think I'm pivoting a lot, and it has nothing to do with dancing at all. Yes, they're living with a person who knows how to pivot, apparently. I think we're all learning things about each other. We've created a fictional housemate though too, just to add to it. When anything's not being done, we just blame it on Julie. I'm sorry if anybody out there is called Julie. It's just the name we've picked to the person we blame who's left the dirty cup about somewhere. So it's nice to have a common enemy in the house. And so I think that's been a bit amusing. We've also, and you would know, I've got two fabulous cavoodles, Archie and Ollie. They'll probably pipe up at some point on this call. We are learning to share our house differently. We're all learning to, work under the same roof, live under the same roof, learn under the same roof. And I've heard so many stories of people saying, oh, my kids are popping in, or my dogs are popping into the meetings. And, I'm like, I'm trying to normalize that, but I'm also trying to be conscious of my family. Like the other day I had 30 minutes. I thought, oh, I'll pop over and see Lucy. So I pop in, I open up the door, and I'm, hey, Lou. And she turns around, gives me the death stare, and she goes, I'm on a virtual geography excursion, mum. Get out. I'm like, so I've got to be just as conscious of her space and where they are and their learning. You know, I wouldn't pop my head into her classroom at school and go, hey, it's mum here. So we are just learning some new, some rules and ways of engaging and trying to be quite patient with each other as well. But on the work side, on the learning, I think, you know, your comment about big problems and little problems, I think one of the other things that's come up to me is we've got to be careful about decision fatigue, because we all have to make decisions now that we've never had to make before, and we're making those decisions with less information than we're normally comfortable with, and less confidence maybe about outcomes. So I think we have to have a whole new set of ways of thinking about decisions. So for some of the people on the call, we were looking at our World Tour Conference here in early March. 10 days out, so still in February, we made a decision to not have that conference here in Australia. Would have been about 10,000 people under a roof in the International Convention Centre here in Sydney. And we made a tough call. And at that time, we were like, oh, we've been too conservative, or we, you know, what are we doing? You know, how do we make this decision? And in making that decision, the first thing we said, what are our values? And we have our values around, one of our values is trust. People trust us to look after them. But another value is customer success. Customers want us to help them be successful. So we said, we're not just going to cancel this conference, we're going to go digital. So we moved from our world tour in 10 days, creating an amazing digital conference in 10 days with, you know, supposed to be everything delivered live, to pre-recording some content, running 4 live streamed channels for people to explore at the same time. We'd never done anything like this globally for our company at scale, and our incredible marketing team, our customers and partners who were part of it really got on board and got behind the event as well. So we made the decision at speed. You know, normally if we wanted to do something like that, we'd have done a lot of research, we would have done some surveys, we might have like tried it in a year's time. You don't have the luxury of that time anymore. And so I just think the thing for me that I'm seeing is decisions have got to be broken down into, you know, what's the best amount of data we can have, what's our risk appetite, let's just make the call. And then we just have to be a little bit more around forgiveness if we don't get it perfect. Let's not, you know, go for perfection. Let's just go for the best possible thing we can do right now to help our team and our customers and partners, and watch that decision fatigue, which I think is, you know, impacting people because they're having to make decisions in a manner that they haven't before.
Yeah, no, I read that for that reason, Obama always had the same outfit he wore every day because he didn't want to use all his decision chips by figuring out what to wear each day. I'm
doing a lot of athleisure wear right now. Workwear on the top and pajamas on the bottom.
A little bit country, a little bit rock and roll there. So I'm really curious about you pivoting and advice that you have for people in terms of how you've pivoted, how you would give people advice to pivot and to change. What's your tips for that?
Yeah, look, I think the thing for me is, what is the thing you're trying to do? Is the thing that you're trying to do still valid in this world and at this moment? And then if it is, and it's something that is core and you really need to do, then how can you still do it? The World Tour was a pivot for us. For me, another, you know, thinking about that for me is my leadership team. I'm so lucky to work with a bunch of incredible leaders. And we know that we have to, you know, connect in some different ways. We start, you know, we bookend our week together as a leadership team. Monday morning, we start off together with a virtual stand-up where we are still, you know, talking about, you know, what's going on, what's most important. And then we finish the week with a Friday afternoon quarantine hour. And we have that where we've finished the week going, okay, how do we do? What do we need to change? So keeping that sort of frequency of communication and connection across the team to make sure we're not waiting too long to, like, you know, surface those challenges, to get all those cross-team things out is really, really important. So just finding ways to do that are, you know, still really important. One of the things we're talking about, you know, for our small businesses, we're really, really conscious right now of the impact that this is having on small businesses. You don't have cash flow. And so the runway and your ability to stay in business is really, really hard. So we know that we can play a role in that. So as an organization, we said, look, what do we do? What can we just give away to small business? This isn't a time to say, let's go make, money. This is a time to say it's our role to give back right now. We have been operating in these communities for some time. Let's figure out what we do. So we gave away, quick collaboration to all small businesses. So I said, here's what you can just go and use to help you collaborate with your employees in ways that you haven't been able before, and just feel free to use the technology. So I think the thing you have to say is, do we believe in small business and want to help them? Yes, but actually we have to just do that in a way now that isn't about selling them anything. It's about giving them some things that maybe they couldn't access before. And in the long term, we just want to be good strategic partners to these companies. So I think those are things they're still looking for. Is the thing you need to do still relevant in this time? And then how can you do it differently? And we won't be able to go out and visit them or do training like that. So we've created a set of training tools they can access online. We've had our SMEs video, record themselves telling people how to do things. So just trying to scale and get that, get those skills out to people in a different way, because we know it's still important, but we couldn't do it the way we used to always do it. So.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm going to just remind everybody that if you can just post your questions there's a little question and answer Q&A little box at the bottom. Post your questions there. I'll just start to ask Pip a few questions that have come out. One of them is from Mike. So thank you, Mike. And Mike says, Pip, thank you for sharing your time and your experience and your learnings. Do you have a view or hypothesis about how the nature of sales may change in the next 3 to 6 months? And if this is on mind, how are you approaching understanding the impact on current versus needed capabilities and reconfiguring your organization?
Yeah, look, really great question. I think about a couple of things. Sales. Sales to me has always about having a capability where you can truly understand your customer, the pain they have, or the things that they're trying to do, and then helping them be able to do that. That is always starts with the customer for me. So that doesn't change. However, how you might have built a relationship or spent time with a customer to truly understand that right now has changed. Because I would have account execs who'd have a desk, out at Qantas's office, go sound like to be, really deeply engaged with a customer and, walking a mile in their shoes. But right now, we can't do that. We have people who are working from home. So I think we have to help people with the capability to connect with customers using tools like this, understand, building empathy and compassion skills, as I talked about earlier, because in this environment, I can't get your body language all the time. I just see your face. I might not see your crossed arms. I may misread a situation. So I think communication skills and empathy and curiosity skills and capabilities are going to have to be really elevated to truly understand what's going on right now and how we can help our customers. So I think that capability is going to shift. And then I think the next part of selling in sales to me is not just what can it do, but how quickly can you help a customer have that happen? So if the customer is, a business now, it says, well, I'm going to have to move everything online. Well, I can probably find out that you need it to go online pretty quickly, but how can I make sure, how is it going to be stood up? What are the skills and how are we going to help you actually consume that as a customer? And how am I going to then work with partners or other people in my company to truly understand the path to the customer's success? Because that pathway is going to be looking differently if you can't have people go into a customer's office. So really, I think the two things in the capabilities I think about shifting or building during this time with our sales team are, how do you understand and seek to get that insight out of our customers so we know how best to help them in a digital environment? And how can, when we know what it is the customer wants done, how can we bring together the other people to truly understand how easy or hard or how long or how much it's going to cost so the customer can actually do the thing they want to do. And quite often, all of those things have been done on site and together. And if we don't do that second part, I think we will really disappoint our customers. And that would be not something that we want to ever do. So I think it's going to require people to do more virtual teaming, more collaboration up front, and it may slow some things down, but I think that's okay because it gets to a better outcome for the customer.
Well, that's really refreshing to hear. One of the things noted by some of the people on the call, and I notice it too, is that you're such an optimistic person, but also realistic as well. And one of the comments and questions that comes from Bastow is, Pip, as you know, optimism is the underpinning of resilience. You have said history is still being written. Optimism is a strategy to make our history a better one. What's the key to your realistic and infectiously optimistic leadership during this pandemic and beyond?
Yeah, look, I do tend to personally be glass half full. I am an optimist, but right now I'd say my optimism is fueled by a couple of things. Look, I have seen some of the most beautiful stories of people, humans helping other humans right now. And yes, you know, what is happening and the amount of people, you know, who've been ill and dying. And I was speaking to one of my best friends this morning in New York, and it's really, really tough out there. And I know it is hard, and people are losing their lives and people are losing their livelihoods. That's the reality. So for me, in addition to that, I read the stories of the people who are volunteering, contacting retirees in retirement homes where they're isolated because they're not able to use their social lounges anymore, and they're volunteering their times to connect with another human being who is socially isolated but actually needs social connection, physically distanced and physically isolated, but we still have a need for emotional and social connection. So I see that people do that. I see the stories of random acts of kindness of people, you know, dropping off toilet paper to people, or helping out in their neighborhood where people have got elderly in the neighborhood who can't go out, and going and doing the shopping. I see so many good stories of individuals and organizations coming back and going on. And I love it. So I'm fueled because I'm seeing some of the best of humanity right now, which is amazing. And I love that. I am fueled by a belief that actually we all can do something. We can all donate our time, treasure, or talents right now. We can donate time and do some volunteering. If we're able to help with, our treasures, our finances, I think we can help and give some of that. And then we can also help with our talents and help donate some skills. So we all have the ability to help write a better future by doing things. Some of our team over the last week have been supporting a domestic violence shelter in West Sydney, you know, doing a drive to get some iPads, and so those people in those shelters can then socially connect with the people that they need to. You know, imagine being unsafe in your own home right now. We need those people to be able to get to a shelter if they need, and then to be able to connect with the people who support them and love them in that space. So I do, you know, I see those good stories and they fill me, and you know, may go for some time. We may be in this period of crisis and recovery for some time, so we need to look out for those and share them, because they speak volumes, you know, for people we know.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. There definitely is a lot of concern about domestic violence, as you said, because the ability to escape that, and also everybody kind of being locked down, you know, can provoke more fires, so to speak, internal fires. So thanks for raising that. I think it's a really important point. The next question comes from Simon. So the New South Wales government announced today we will soon be able to access free TAFE courses to keep people occupied during the coronavirus crisis. I know Salesforce believes in education for all, which you talked about previously, through Trailhead. What can individuals and companies do to increase resilience by upskilling at this time?
Yeah, so I talked earlier about, you know, crisis recovery return. So I think as part of the recovery is the time for us to be thinking about how do we set the cornerstone for that recovery now. And I think one of the cornerstones for our recovery is the reskilling. So, you know, only half of Australian small businesses are online. I think that this will dramatically change that. You know, it will be when you start a business, you know, there's no way you wouldn't think about having your business be online, because this experience has shown us if you can't do your business online, you may not be able to do your business at all. So in doing that, what are the skills that we need to ensure that every business has an online presence? So I think there's an opportunity for companies like ours, actually across the industry, to be working with government to help government understand the types of skills that they should be promoting to people who have currently either been, stood down or maybe struggling to find a job. Let's find a way to bring that whole Digital Nation Australia program that, Mr. Andrews has been talking about, bring a platform to the country that is not about just, Salesforce skills, but any skills to try and drive that in and up level the level of digital skills across Australia. That would be a great cornerstone for being a more resilient Australia into the future. And I think as part of that, when you build platforms around learning, you can not just put skills in there around getting a small business online, cybersecurity, working remotely. I think what you can do is also put in there learning for people in regard to resilience and mental wellness. Imagine there was a national curriculum for small businesses right now supporting your mental wellness when you're working in a small business. Here are some of the things that you can do to help you now, keep resilience up, keep people accessing resources to help build up that resilience and coping mechanisms right now, or ways to connect, ways for them to connect with their employees. We're very lucky at our company. We're a big multinational, so we can get a lot of that. But actually small businesses don't have that. So I think we can work with government to help not just create skills around digital skills and, cloud commerce and, online marketing, but also your mental well-being and resilience right now. And I think there's a lot of activity, I think, happening around that. And if we do those well, that's to me all about the recovery phase, getting that strong foundations in the recovery. So we come out of this a more, a stronger nation.
So I think now it's only fair that I take a question from Julie.
Sorry, Julie. We've got those coffee cups.
But Julie, by the way, she says she's happy to be your scapegoat and also willing to be your oodle watcher as well.
I know, Julie. I think I know which Julie this is then. You can
look up Julie. I'll refrain from using the last names right now, but you can look it up later. So I just want to bleed on to your approach and your focus for small businesses, because I'm also very concerned about that. Is, the larger businesses have more resources and it's easier for them to survive. But what about these small businesses and many new startups in the face of this crisis? So what's your advice or recommendations for new businesses to thrive in this new world? And you've talked a bit about some of that in the previous question, but just more around how do we, should they be collaborating with the big guys, find customers, competitors, capital? What kind of advice would you give these smaller businesses and the new startups?
Yeah, and it's funny, I was speaking to a small business owner this morning and trying to make sure I speak to a number of our customers and of all sizes. And she's a relatively new small business, so she's only 4 months in. And because she doesn't have a certain minimum yet on how much she's making, some of the government packages are not able to access that. So I think, hopefully over time, government's going to evolve their position on some of these things to be more inclusive. Somebody starting out 4 months ago would never have planned for COVID, and your business continuity planning when you're a small business starting out is pretty minimal, I would say. So I think at that point, I would be saying a couple of things. Then one is, how are they thinking about using, technology innovation to do the thing they do? Especially if you're in a certain business where, if you're in retail and you're just in the local market, you've pretty much just been selling in your high street, but can you stand up something really quickly to, show your product and then be able to do, shipping and get that out? So I think there's a real opportunity, if we can, to move and help these small businesses get online. There are still some services going on. So how can you also connect with other small businesses? I think right now there is potentially the opportunity to band together with some other small businesses and say, how can we reduce costs together, share some back end, share some services. I think there's some great platforms being stood up right now, which are really trying to help businesses connect with businesses in new and innovative ways. So start to explore some of those marketplaces and platforms that are being shared out there so that you can do that. And then think about that recovery stage. You know, if your business can be sustained right now, how can you make sure that you are doing as much as possible to say, how can you be running that business in a new way, connecting with your customers, you know, communicating with your customers, building some of that loyalty. I've loved some of the creativity I've seen from, you know, small restaurants sharing recipes. You know, they won't share a recipe beforehand because that's their IP, but actually now here's my customers' favorite recipes. I'll share it with you, and you'll get, you know, one of my recipes when you know, get our takeaways. So start to think about your IP and how you can use it to create, you know, pretty cool connection with your customers. So I think it's going to take some creativity. I think what's hard though for all humans is fear kills creativity. You know, when you are stressed, under pressure, you feel the way your brain works generally shuts down all the creative parts. Get into that creative space. So, and if you are struggling to get there, you know, use some of these tools, you know, great Zoom meetings, get some friends and, you know, some network, and get on a Zoom call and just, you know, brainstorm some around the ways and ideas for you to connect right now, because I think you got to get yourself into a space where you're thinking about what's possible, and what can you control and what can you do versus the things that, you know, you can't control and you just can't do. But it is hard, and I don't want to put a lipstick on it. There'll be companies already that haven't survived, and there'll be some more that don't. And that is, you know, that's the thing that is heartbreaking for many Australians. I mean, it's impacted my family already, and I've seen that, you know, with my relatives, and so I know there are people who are already losing their job, and that's something I can't, you know, I don't want to be overly optimistic and say that's never going to happen, because it is going to happen, and it will happen more.
Yeah, no, it breaks my heart for some of the small businesses. So I'm glad to hear some of your advice and also the support that we can all provide to the small businesses as well. I have a question here from Jules from Diageo. They have a question that I also have as well. And just to make the conversation a little bit more interesting as well, is this is all around, I think about the children that I have and are on the computers the whole time and trying to get them off of the technology versus onto the technology. So looking at it from a slightly different angle, Jules asked, instant access to technology is both a virtue and a vice. A lot of people will be on back-to-back Zooms, calls, etc. throughout the week with increased intensity. Have you engaged your people or your customers with advice on how to limit technology, as well as giving them access to manage their energy?
Yeah, I think that is so true. So I'm going to handle it two things. On a personal level, can I just say though, it's actually, I touched on before, it's actually brought the family, the girls are actually happier in some ways to get out of their devices. I mean, we have a Connect 4 championship going on in this house that is pretty ruthless. Yeah, it's Connect 4 strategies to win have gone through the roof, you know, and that Connect 4 game hasn't been played with, I reckon, for 10 years. So the games where, you know, that stuff is actually, you know, lifting. At work, I would tell you the first couple of weeks, I found I was back-to-back Zoom meetings and Google Hangouts and Zoom. I was having sometimes 15 meetings a day. I was exhausted. And then I was buying some Diageo product to help me with that. I know some of your great products. So I've changed, and we're all trying to shift and change as we learn how to do this. So for example, now I'm definitely blocking out into my calendar breaks, because even just looking at the screen all day, I was, you know, getting headaches and eye strain. So making sure you do that. Some of my meetings now, I know I don't need the video. So for example, last week I had a meeting, one of my last meetings for the day was a one-on-one with one of my team, and I texted Di and said, hey, how about we both go for a walk? And not together because we're in different suburbs, but we actually put our headsets on and we both walked and spoke through that. So I'm still having the meeting, I'm still connecting with her, but I'm getting my steps up. I'm you know, encouraging one of my team to do the same, and role modeling some different behaviors. Because I think, you know, if you role model, you know, sitting on a back-to-back Zoom or every day, that's tough. You know, people, it's what you what you do, not what you say. So I'm really trying to just shift that up a little bit and make sure that I'm mixing up how I'm doing my meetings. Some of them are walking meetings. Some of them, if it's, you know, raining, it is just even, I'm just walking through the house, standing up and just not being here on the screen all the time. And then just blocking out some half-hour blocks, just, you know, think, write, you know, get my, you know, what are the problems? What's most important? What am I working on today? Just to really focus myself. Otherwise, you're constantly listening to demand signals, all the other things that people want you to respond to versus where should I thoughtfully be spending my time right now, and getting your head into thinking about that, I think is really important.
Yeah, no, I love that advice. And it kind of reminds me of Steve Jobs and how he loved to have all those meetings walking. I love the fact that you're breaking down barriers in different ways, which is you can still have a meeting and walking, and what's wrong with that? Honestly. Yeah, no, that's terrific. So I will take one last question here. So let me see here. This one comes from Arnab. Thank you for all those great insights and optimism. I have a question for you. How do you foresee business models changing in the new normal? And how do you see the future?
Oh, well, if I could see that, we'd be in a different situation. Look, I think a couple of things. I think, I do think, let me talk about a couple of risks I worry about. First of all, I worry about over-protectionism for a period of time. So, you know, I do worry that we will see a lot of inward looking, and I think we've got to combat that. And you combat that with values and purpose is the first thing I would say. So, you know, success isn't my company surviving. Success is Australia surviving as best as possible through this. So have a sense of what is most important and a purpose that fuels you, that helps you not just look at your own world, but look on the outside, because I think that it is important we help as many people and as many companies get through this experience as best as possible to come out into, you know, through that recovery and then return to that new normal. So that'd be my first thing. Second thing, I think business models will really start to think more about BCP, business continuity, differently, and the decisions that companies have made. And we've seen a lot of companies offshore, for example. And I think offshoring will continue in some form or fashion. Yeah, I think, you know, we'll tap into different labor pools around the market. But, you know, what we saw in the last few weeks is, you know, in Manila, when people couldn't go into work, into the contact centers, we saw companies have their wait times on the phone go up to 16, 17 hours. Now, let's be honest, customers don't really want to wait 16, 17 hours to have their phone call answered. So I think we will think a lot more about workforce planning, offshoring, onshoring, how we do that. But boy, I've seen some really smart responses to those things. How quickly you can stand up a chatbot. How quickly companies have been sharing, moving employees from one company to another. And actually, Qantas is a great example of that with Woolworths. We've seen incredible companies standing up new training to retrain certain people in their organization to move them onto the phones, to be able to have conversations that they haven't had before, you know, in some of our financial institutions. So I think we will be more adaptive as an organization. Organizations will be far more adaptive at the end of this, and they will build in those plans far more rigorously than you've ever seen before. And so I think those are the things that will change. I also think you'll see a greater adoption of flexible work, working from home. I know that I've been speaking about flexible work for a long time. I've always believed work is a thing you do, not a place you go in most cases. Some jobs require you to be physically there, but so many don't. And culturally, there's been reticence in some organizations and industries. I think this experience will open up people's eyes to what is possible and what can be achieved. I mean, I have seen so many great images of Zoom meetings. You've got the gallery view of people having, you know, meetings, dress up meetings, craziness, but still being really effective and productive around the things they're trying to do. So I think we will break down a lot of barriers around the use of technology to enable flexible work. And my great hope is through all of this, we will see a greater sense of gender equity in regard to being at work and at home. You know, we are sharing our workplaces. People are seeing, you know, what it is like for the other partner, you know, the partner in their life. be it same sex or not, you're seeing what it's like for your partner. And I think we are sort of busting some myths around being able to have some more flexibility in that. So I hope we come out in a more gender equitable outcome as well.
Yeah, I think the words were, never let a crisis go to waste, and coming out stronger. I love your ideas around what flexible work really means, what equality really means, and also this adaptive mindset. And for me, what I'll take away from this too, beyond your optimism and your realism, is your kindness. Because I think also the world needs a lot of kindness and inclusivity. And that's a lot of what you've been talking around as core skills for the future and to survive this. I'm going to hand it back to Johnny, who's going to run a poll, and then we'll do some more formal thanks. But at least from myself to you, Pip, I just want to say what it's a delight. It always is to talk to you. And I will be scheduling a walking talk with you very soon as well.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
So over to you, Johnny.
Thank you very much, Susan, and thank you for the terrific dialogue. And we now move to our poll, which we take at every one of our briefings. We try and get the mood and the sense of how everyone is feeling now. In front of you, we've got 5 questions. How do you feel as a business person now? Is the government doing a good job in this crisis? For your business planning, how long will this take? And then we've got 2 customer service, customer experience questions that we hope will be of value to Pip. And in the meantime, Susan, thank you again. Terrific for staying up and being with us. And Pip, amazing, amazing. You took us inside your company, inside your heart, inside your family, and inside your home. And we had a wonderful response from so many people who wanted to hear your insights. You certainly did not let us down. You were empathetic, visionary, as you are always an incredible leader. We had a wonderful response from all around the world. We're sure people took a lot away. So thank you for your time. And now let's move to how everybody's feeling. We've got the results in front of you, and we'll be able to share those with everyone afterwards as well. So to Pip Marlow, thanks for your vision. Thanks for the leadership. Keep showing it. We love to listen. We love to follow. We love to be inspired. To everybody, thank you for joining us. And again, of course, to our partners, CBA, IBM, Red Hat, and ServiceNow. Thanks for making all of this possible, and we'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.